Hello, Gentle Explainer here. Today I am going to gently explain a fantasy adventure movie called Wish of the Fairy Fish. Today's story is about a foolish boy living in a small village. People considered him a fool, but fate had something great in store for him. One day, while fishing, he finds a magical fish that can grant any of his 3 desires. This is where the boy's true story of destiny begins. While his journey became easier with each wish, his life became more complicated. Now, we'll see how that magical fish, transformed into a girl, supports him in today's story. The story begins in a different land deep in the ocean, where the king of the fishes asks his faithful spy, the frog, "Where has the fish I want to marry disappeared to?" The frog said fearfully, "Your Majesty, I can't find any trace of her." Hearing this, the king became angry and said, "Go to every corner of this world and start searching for him and bring him before me." The scene then changes to a small, snow-covered village in Russia, where a blind blacksmith lives. His son, Emilia, is asleep inside, but his dog wakes him up. Emilia is a pure-hearted and somewhat naive boy. As he quietly tries to leave the house, his father, working at the furnace, understands and says, "Son, you should also learn this blacksmithing trade. How long will I live?" Emilia says, "Okay, sir, I'll learn it soon." At his request, he takes a bucket and a hook and heads out to the frozen river. He sits down and begins fishing, but then suddenly, water surges up like a fountain, and with it, a fish falls into his bucket. Emilia is overjoyed that he's finally managed to have dinner without much effort. Then, he returns home and begins preparing to cook the fish. Just then, a voice calls out, "What are you looking for?" Emilia is astonished to discover that the fish can speak. "If you release me back into the river, I'll grant you any 3 wishes." Emilia initially doesn't believe him, yet he makes his first wish. "I wish I could travel around the entire town without leaving my furnace." As soon as he says this, the house suddenly begins to shake, and gradually the entire house rises. Emilia is terrified, and in a flash, his furnace starts moving like a cart, and he literally walks out of the entire village. The fish says, "Just as you said, you want to travel without leaving the furnace, so the furnace is going with you." Emilia couldn't believe his first wish had come true. Then, after stopping somewhere, he blurted out, "I wish the weather would be warm with greenery all around." As he said this, greenery spreads through the snow, and a warm breeze replaces the cold, and the ice beneath melts, revealing a river. The fish says, "You've used up 2 of your wishes, and only 1 is left." Emilia is then puzzled. Having wasted 2 of them, the fish says, "Every person only asks for what is within their means." Emilia then starts moving forward with the fish. Just then, some robbers block his path and try to snatch the bucket from his hand. Emilia, trying to save the fish, runs with the bucket, and all the robbers chase after him, but somehow he escapes them and quickly releases the fish into the river to keep it safe. But the robbers catch him and, enraged, hang him upside down from a tree and leave. A short while later, a beautiful girl arrives, unties the rope, and lowers Emilia down. Emilia doesn't recognize her at first, but when asked her name, she tells him her name is Vasilisa. Seeing a shining scarf on her shoulder, Emilia realizes that this is the same magical fish he had released into the water. He immediately takes her scarf so she can't escape and says, "I still have 1 last wish left, which I will use at the right time." Vasilisa asks, "What's next?" He replies, "I want to marry Princess Anfisa, the daughter of the Russian Tsar, and instead of asking for a wish, I will work hard myself, and you will support me." Vasilisa also agrees to accompany him, after which, we are shown the king's magnificent palace. Princess Anfisa's maid arrives and informs her that the English ambassador is arriving with a wedding invitation. Hearing this, Anfisa is overjoyed, as she has always wanted to marry an Englishman, so she gets ready and sits down. The ambassador arrives and presents an umbrella to the princess to appease her. However, the king completely dislikes the English and wants his daughter to marry a true and kind-hearted man. But before the king can refuse, the ambassador says, "Your Majesty, I have brought you a special gift. You will be very happy to see it." Meanwhile, Emilia and Vasilisa have arrived near the palace walls and are secretly watching all this. The ambassador shows the king a machine and says that it plays music automatically. But in reality, there's a man hidden inside the machine who plays music at the touch of a button. The king tells him that he doesn't need such a machine. Princess Anfisa has fallen in love with the Englishman, and the king is at a loss for how to convince his daughter. Just then, Amelia comes running and says, "Your Majesty, there's no need to marry the princess to an Englishman. I'll get you a machine that will play music just by speaking." The king, delighted, says, "If you can do that, you can ask for whatever you want." Amelia immediately asks, "Will you let me marry the princess?" The king smiles and says, "If you succeed, I'll definitely arrange the marriage." But the princess tries to convince her father to marry the Englishman. The king ignores her words and tells his servants to give Amelia new clothes and shoes so he can set off on his journey. Amelia comes out very happily and tells Vasilisa everything. Vasilisa says that the device exists in this world, but it is not easy to find it. It is in the dark forest with a dangerous cat. Whoever went to get it never returned. Amelia is a little scared, but he is ready to face any difficulty to get the device. Vasilisa agrees to accompany him, and the two set out towards the dark forest. On the way, Vasilisa tells him that the cat is very dangerous. If it plays a happy song, the person in front of it dances uncontrollably until they collapse, and then the cat eats them. If it plays a sad song, the listener falls asleep crying, and the same fate befalls them. Now, when they reach a certain point, Vasilisa says that from here on, you will have to go alone. After which, Amelia alone moves forward into the eerie forest, where heaps of bones and skeletons lie everywhere. Then suddenly, a voice calls out, "These skeletons belong to those who came to take my musical instrument. Do you want it too?" Amelia fearlessly replies, "Yes." The cat laughs, "Okay, if you can control yourself after listening to my song, then this instrument will be yours. Now tell me, will you listen to a sad song or a happy one?" Amelia chooses a sad song, so the cat plays the instrument and begins to sing. The cat was happy, thinking that he would hunt Amelia as soon as he fell asleep. But surprisingly, Amelia just cries a little and then starts singing the next line of the song. The cat, surprised, asks, "How do you know this?" Amelia smiles and says, "My mother used to sing this same song to me when I was a child, so it didn't affect me much." Now, as per the bet, the cat loses and instead starts crying, "If you take this device away, I'll starve to death." Hearing this, Amelia opens his bag and gives the cat some food. After eating his fill for the first time, the cat happily says, "Now, this device is yours, and from today on, I'll live with you because I've become your friend." Meanwhile, Vasilisa sits on the riverbank, waiting. Just then, the Fish King's spy, the frog, arrives and says, "The Fish King is looking everywhere to marry you." Hearing this, she angrily refuses, saying, "Go and tell him I'll never marry him." Just then, Amelia arrives with the cat and the device and overhears the frog's conversation. Vasilisa is overjoyed at having found the device, and then they both start returning. On the way, Amelia asks about the Fish King, and Vasilisa says, "I don't love him, so I left." Next, we see a scene at the king's palace, where the English ambassador has disguised himself as the Italian ambassador. Princess Anfisa is delighted to recognize him, but before he can ask the king for Anfisa's hand, Amelia arrives with a cat and a magic instrument and tells the cat to play a happy song. As soon as the music begins, everyone in the court from the king on down begins dancing, unable to stop themselves. And just when everyone is about to fall to the ground in exhaustion, Amelia asks the cat to stop. Seeing this, the king, astonished, says, "This is a wonderful instrument. I am very happy, and now this cat and the instrument will live in our palace." Amelia reminds the king of the conditions of marriage, and he happily agrees. But Anfisa still wants to marry the Englishman. She tells Amelia, "If you really want to marry me, then prove to me that you can do anything for me. I'll tell you what that is tomorrow." The naive Amelia, taken in by her words, smiles and agrees. Then he goes to Vasilisa and tells her, "The princess has agreed to the marriage, but for that, I will have to do one more new thing." Vasilisa smiles and congratulates him. But on the other hand, the princess has a new trick. She goes to a dark room in the palace and summons her mother's evil spirit from a mysterious chair. As soon as the spirit appears, Anfisa says, "I want to give Amelia a task that he can never complete. so that I can be rid of him forever." Her mother, smiling, tells her it's a difficult task. The next day, at court, the ambassador shows the king a machine and says, "This machine is a modern mixer. If you put water in it, it will automatically stir it, and if you put fruit in it, it will automatically produce juice." In reality, there's a man hidden inside, doing all this. But from the outside, it appears to be a magical machine. Meanwhile, Anfisa comes to the king and asks if Amelia can bring something that serves food on its own. The king says he's heard of such magical tablecloths in stories, but never seen them. Anfisa cleverly says, "If Amelia brings me that magical tablecloth, I'll marry him." Now, as per the princess's new condition, Amelia and Vasilisa set out in search of the magical tablecloth. On the way, Vasilisa reveals that the tablecloth is in the possession of two brothers named Semyon and Afanasi. Many years ago, they left the village and went to live in the mountainous region. They used to get food and drinks without doing any work at all. Because of this, they became so lazy that they couldn't even walk. While chatting like this, they stop for dinner at the home of an elderly couple. The house is very simple, but there is true love between them. Then, as they leave, Vasilisa smiles and says, "Love between two people should be like a needle and thread. One is incomplete without the other." Moving forward, they pass through lush green fields and finally reach the mountainous region where, among the high cliffs, the two fat brothers sit with a magical tablecloth in front of them. At their word, the magical tablecloth instantly brings forth a large quantity of delicious food, and they both eat to their heart's content. Amelia and Vasilisa watch all this from a distance. When the brothers tire of eating, Amelia approaches them and demands, "Give me this tablecloth." Hearing this, the two angrily hit him on the head with a rock, knocking him unconscious. Vasilisa then arrives to wake Amelia and tells them to look at their faces in the water. When they see their reflections, they are shocked. Years of eating and drinking have made them fat like buffaloes. Now, feeling sorry for themselves, they ask Vasilisa, "How can we ever be like before?" Vasilisa says, "If you really want this, the first thing you have to do is get rid of this magical tablecloth. As long as you have it, you'll never be able to work hard." Hearing this, both brothers embarrassingly say, "You're right, take it away." Vasilisa takes the tablecloth and somehow manages to escape with Amelia. Amelia regains consciousness and, seeing the tablecloth, feels happy that he has finally fulfilled the condition. On the way back, when Amelia starts picking flowers from the flower garden for the princess, Vasilisa says, "Why don't you understand that Anfisa doesn't want to marry you? She always gives you tasks you can't do." But Amelia, in his innocence, says, "No, Anfisa, it's not like that. Once I do this, everything will be fine." Seeing Amelia's kindness, Vasilisa falls in love with him, but despite her best efforts, she can't express her feelings. Later, when Amelia arrives in the kingdom with the magic tablecloth, everyone cheers for him. The king proudly declares, "Look, now he's made a place in the hearts of the people." But Anfisa's anger is clearly visible on her face. She again asks her mother's spirit, "What should I do now?" With a terrifying smile, the spirit reveals a terrible plan. The next day, in court, Anfisa declares in front of everyone, "I'm ready to marry Amelia, but before that, I want him to go to the dark world and get my mother's permission to marry me." The king is shocked to hear this because it is impossible to return alive from the dark world. But Amelia, as is his habit, agrees without thinking. Then he meets Vasilisa, who explains to him that going there is like stepping into the mouth of death. Amelia simply smiles, saying, "Why fear death when your intentions are clear?" The next day, after leaving, he first goes to visit his blind father. Hearing his voice, his father says, "Son, you're alive. I couldn't find you because my eyes no longer see." Hearing this, Amelia's eyes fill with tears. He apologizes to his father, receives his blessing, and sets off on his journey. On the way, he tells Vasilisa, "I wasted 2 wishes just like that, but now I want the 3rd wish to make my father see again." Hearing this, Vasilisa's magic restores his father's sight. Then, they reach the riverbank, where they are about to begin their journey. Emelia returns the magic scarf containing the fish and frees Vasilisa, as all 3 wishes have been used up. But Vasilisa says, "I can't leave you alone in this trouble, because we're incomplete without each other, like a needle and thread." Emelia doesn't understand the hint, and their journey begins. After traveling some distance down the river, they see large statues all around. Vasilisa says that this is where the dark area begins. They stop the boat and descend into a valley. Hearing the voice of the area's guardian, Emelia becomes frightened, but Vasilisa says, "He came with me, father." Emelia is shocked. "How can he be your father?" The guardian says, "Yes, I am her father. I was the one who transformed her from a fish into a human, searching for a true mate." Now Vasilisa tells her father everything and asks him for help. After hearing everything, he says that the queen tortured innocent people for greed and power. That's why she has been kept hungry for eternity. Then he summons the queen's spirit, and she appears in her terrifying form. Emelia steps forward and says, "I have come to ask for your permission to marry your daughter." But the queen's spirit says, "I will never allow my daughter to marry a poor man." Seeing this, Vasilisa's father tells the queen, "You have been suffering the punishment of hunger for centuries. If you give your permission for their marriage, I can give you food." Seeing the food in front of her, the queen cannot resist and gives her permission for the marriage. Next, we see a scene in the palace where everyone is eating. Suddenly, the queen's spirit appears like smoke on a tray placed on the table and declares to everyone, "I grant this marriage." The king is delighted that Emelia has truly accomplished what no human being could. But Anfisa becomes angry. Meanwhile, in the dark world, Vasilisa thanks her father and then begins her return with Emelia. On the way, she smiles and says, "Now your most difficult task is complete. You will find your princess, and now you will forget me too, because those who return alive from here lose every magical memory." Emelia says from his heart, "Forgetting you is beyond my power, nor do I ever want to forget you." Meanwhile, Anfisa, enraged, enters the room and begins breaking the mysterious chair. Her mother's spirit stops her and says, "I was forced to give Emelia permission. He wasn't alone. All his successes are thanks to a magical fish. And you know, using magic in our kingdom is punishable by death." Hearing this, Anfisa understands what she must do with Emelia. It's morning on the river bank, and the boat pulls into shore. But as Emelia opens his eyes, all memories of Vasilisa are erased from his mind. He doesn't even recognize her. Vasilisa says, "I was just a boatman taking you across the river." Emelia gets off the boat and starts to leave, but he feels as if he's forgotten something very important. Then he approaches Anfisa and says, "I completed all your tasks, but now I might have fallen in love with someone else." Anfisa slyly asks, "Did you do all this alone?" Emelia replies, "No, every time. Maybe some magical power helped me." Hearing this, Anfisa summons the soldiers and orders them to capture Emelia. Then, the next day, in front of everyone, he is blindfolded, and it is announced that Emelia used magic to obtain the princess. Therefore, he is sentenced to death. Emelia is deeply saddened that the one for whom he risked his life wants to kill him. The king is forced to remain silent, but just as the soldiers are about to open fire, Vasilisa arrives. She tells Anfisa to release him, saying, "In exchange, I will serve you as your slave for the rest of my life and grant you any 3 wishes." Then, she hands Anfisa her magic scarf. Anfisa's eyes sparkle and she pardons Emelia's punishment. But now, her pride grows even greater and, having made her first wish, she sways all the people to her side, imprisons her father, and declares herself the new queen. Then, with the second wish, she demands that the Prince of England come to her with a marriage proposal. Thanks to Vasilisa's magic, the English soldiers arrive in no time, bringing the prince's proposal. Seeing this, the ambassador says, "You wanted to marry me." Anfisa replies, "Put this poor man to work in the palace. Now, I will marry the prince, not the ambassador." Just then, Emelia returns home. Semyon and Afanasi are also present, now recovered from their hard work. Emelia's father says, "Last time you came here with Vasilisa," but Emelia can't remember anything. Then Emelia notices the needle and thread in Semyon's hand, and after a moment of careful observation, all his memories come flooding back. He sets out to find Vasilisa, accompanied by her father, Semyon, and Afanasi. They take their furnaces to the palace, and, upon arriving, break down the palace gates. Emilia immediately confronts Vasilisa and says, "It took me too long to understand your love, but now I've come to take you away." Just then, Anfisa arrives with her soldiers, declaring that this girl is now her slave. Emilia says, "If you don't free her, we will incite your soldiers against you." But Anfisa laughs arrogantly and says, "You can't harm me." Then she asks Vasilisa for her third and final wish. "Make me a witch just like you." Vasilisa, without delay, fulfills the wish, and Anfisa herself transforms into a fish and falls into a bucket. Seeing this, everyone laughs, thinking the princess has made a fool of herself, and she cries out, "Turn me back into a human quickly." Vasilisa says, "The magic fish doesn't fulfill its own wishes, but the wishes of others, and you, lured by magical power, turned yourself into a fish." Just then, the king of the fishes emerges and, mistaking Anfisa for Vasilisa, takes her down with him forever. After this, everything in the palace becomes calm and happy. The king returns to his people, and Emilia approaches Vasilisa and kisses her. She is overjoyed, knowing her search for a true companion is over. And with that, the story ends. I hope you liked this movie explain video. If you want to see more similar movie explain videos, then you can watch this video by clicking here. Now I go and see you in the next video.